Hey y'all, it's Brody, and today I'm here to give you a spoiler-free review of Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. I read this in the month of September 2020 for my book club, the Spooky Bitches Book Club. I'll be leaving links down below for you to go check out. That's the Spooky Bitches Book Club announcement video, links to the other co-hosts, our Twitter, our Instagram, all that good stuff. You can find out more information for the live show down below. Into the Drowning Deep is a multi-perspective horror novel, which is something I always really enjoy. It follows a crew of scientists and cryptozoologists and researchers and submersible pilots, just all of the ocean-related science stuff you can imagine, as well as a camera crew and hired guards who are going to set sail to the Mariana Trench. This voyage is funded by a company called Imagine, which is kind of like the Sci-Fi Network type deal. They film a bunch of like really crappy mockumentaries and dumb like B-rated horror films. A few years ago, before the events of this book, there was a crew that had set sail to the Mariana Trench to film a mockumentary about mermaids living there, and footage was released by the Navy that showed killer mermaids murdering everyone. All hands were lost. However, there is some like controversy as to whether it was a hoax or whether it was real, whether it was a publicity stunt for Imagine. They would just faked the deaths of all of these people because like they're a sci-fi channel. They can do special effects, right? So Imagine has now funded this voyage several years later, kind of as a PR stunt on their part to make them not look like idiots to the rest of the world, but for the people on the ship. So Tori, who lost her sister on the trip, Dr. Jillian Toth, who is the like world-renowned, she's like the expert mermaidologist, the sirenologist, whose life's work has been like trying to prove the mermaids are real. Her husband, who works for Imagine, is kind of a spokesperson. You have Olivia, who is a reporter, kind of like a Felicia Day type character, where she like reports for Imagine and, you know, does all these like nerdy cosplays and conventions and stuff. You have Louis, who is Tori's best friend, who, you know, kind of works hand in hand with her with the same similar, like, sonar sciences. You have three sisters, two of whom are twins, who all communicate via ASL because the twins are deaf. One of them is a submersible pilot. One of them is a, you know, sign language expert. It's so interesting, and I love the science portion of this book, but we'll get into that a little bit later. There's also a prequel novella. This one came out second, so technically, like, the first novella in the series is called Rolling in the Deep. I think you can find it on Kindle. I read that. I really enjoyed it, but I don't think you have to read Rolling in the Deep before you read Into the Drowning Deep. I read Into the Drowning Deep first and I was completely fine. So I would recommend picking this one up because I like it a little bit better. The first thing I like about it is the characters. The characters in this book are so badass. You know, they're scientists, so they're kind of nerdy, and, you know, you don't really think of scientists as being badass, but whenever it comes to the face of danger, they know how to get shit done. And there's a passage in the book, I can't remember the direct quote, but it basically says, like, with science, you are running towards the danger. You are trying to figure out the danger. And I think it's really interesting how in most horror sci-fi things, right? The scientists are kind of like the nerdy weak ones who are only there to be smart, but in this one, the scientists, they take no shit. They are going to get shit done. They are going to push forward and try and survive, and also, you know, like, prove their life's work. Everyone's motives for wanting to stay alive and kind of being total badasses are really awesome. So the next thing I love in this book is the different, like, walks of life that you have, right? So right off the top of my head, I know that there's a Latinx character, an Australian character of Japanese descent, and a character from Hawaii. I feel like with horror novels, people of color tend to get the short end of the stick, and they are definitely made into the bad guys. With this, that's not the case. All the characters are just, like, doing their work and what they're hired to do, so I appreciated that. Another thing, like I said, there are characters who communicate exclusively through ASL. That was really nice to see. This was, I think, the first book I ever read that actually had deaf characters communicating through sign language. There's also very good discussion in the book about how sign language does not follow what we think of as traditional grammar structure. That was a very interesting topic of conversation. And then you have a sapphic relationship. Tori is bisexual and Olivia likes girls exclusively, which I really enjoy. You guys know, like, if you've been watching my channel, I love sapphic horror for some reason. I really gravitate towards that. You have, like, Rory Power, you have soft kill girls. I like seeing my ladies with the spooky monsters. But the one thing I really want to highlight in this book is Olivia, who is autistic. As someone who is autistic myself, I related a lot to Olivia's character. I thought that Olivia was the best done character, in my opinion. Granted, that's one of the few characters that I can speak for in the book, but the way that Olivia feels safer through the lens of a camera, because you're talking to camera Olivia and not real life person Olivia, and Olivia can like go back and like watch the conversation through a different lens, is something I really related to. Also, Olivia kind of loses her safety net in the book, so to speak, and she doesn't know how to function because this safety net has always been there to protect her. I also appreciate I don't know what the proper term for it is. I call them like my reboot moments, where it's like I'm just saying the same thing over and over again, and it annoys people. And I'm like, I am Brody. I'm here. I'm existing. I am doing this thing. I am existing in this moment. I am Brody, and I am doing this thing, because that's one way that I can stay focused on what I have to do while blocking everything else out. And that's something that Olivia has to do toward the end of the book. I cannot stress this enough, y'all. Like, Olivia is my favorite character. I think the best character in the book. I think something that could have been done differently, we could have trimmed a couple of characters out, or at least just left them as like in the background. Like, I don't think every character that had a point of view chapter really needed a point of view chapter. Like Jason, who is Tori's like douchey ex-boyfriend, or some of the guards having POV chapters, I think could have been done without. That being said, this would not work as a single perspective story, because all of the different scientists have different expertise, so you need to be able to get into all of their heads. Another thing I appreciate is the science behind the mermaids. There's a scene toward the middle of the book where a siren is killed, and they can kind of do like a necropsy on it and figure out like how everything works. It kind of compares them to anglerfish and viperfish, which I really like, because I don't like the idea that mermaids are these like pretty beautiful, you know, like Ariel Little Mermaid types. Whenever I think mermaids, I think of like these deep sea ocean horrors that could kill you and that are designed and have adapted to kill you. And that's the kind of mermaids you get in Into the Drowning Deep. Everything about them is meant to lure you in so that they can drag you under and kill you. They have teeth like anglerfish with all of the protruding, you know, like the spiky teeth. It talks about their different sets of lungs and their different bladders and stuff, how they can survive in the water and on land, how they've adapted to that. It talks about their hair, which is glowing like bioluminescence to lure in prey, because whenever you're in the water, light means surface, so you swim to the light and then you swim to the mermaids. Does that make sense? It talks about how the mermaids kind of communicate through their own form of sign language, and you know, their different songs, and then their real voices, and all of these different aspects that are just meant to be very deadly and lure you in. I just really love the way that they're talked about being the apex predator in the ocean, but then the science is there to back it up. I think that was something that was fantastic. I think the writing is one of my favorite technical elements about this book. I'm not a huge technical critique person. I think every author has a writing style, and that's valid, and it's not my place to comment negatively on that, but I can say whether it works for me or not, and this is definitely a style that works for me. I have never read another Sean McGuire / Mira Grant. This is the only one that I've read, so I don't know if it's a consistent writing style throughout the rest of her books. I like how it's a little heavy without being like overly flowery. I'm not a fan of purple prose. It's not my jam. I think how I would describe the writing best is like, it almost feels like a mermaid song itself. People have called this book like a fairy tale. I don't know if I agree with that, but I think the way that the writing is and how McGuire does certain callbacks to other passages that she's written, or, you know, like, she'll say the same thing at the end of this passage, and then 2 chapters later it'll say the same thing, and the same thing, because it parallels each other. It kind of sucks you deeper and deeper into the story, and I really think the writing is fantastic. The other thing I think could have been done a little bit better about this book is the way that the action plays out. So this is a creature book, right? It's like a creature feature, so think like Jaws, you know. And I don't want to compare it too much to Jaws, but Jaws kind of sparked a creature feature phenomenon. You got grizzly and orca and, you know, killer squids from planet Mars with Jaws, and with all of these subsequent knockoff creature flicks. You get a little taste of the action, right? You get like a splash of this, and then you like see a fin somewhere, and then oh no, someone goes missing and we don't know where they went. Oh no, there's blood on the railing, so someone must have hit their head or whatever. You get little snippets that build up into the monster reveal. And I feel like the monster reveal happens a little too early. So for me, I would have pushed the first contact with the mermaids where everyone is aware. Like having a POV character get killed by a mermaid, that's fine. Because then at least you, the reader, know that the mermaid is real. Think of it like watching a movie trailer, right? So whenever you watch the trailer for Jaws, like, you know there's a killer shark killing people. As a reader, it would be okay for me to get like a POV chapter of someone getting killed by the mermaid. However, I don't want the rest of the characters to know. I want the rest of the characters to be in suspense and tension. So it's like I'm sitting there screaming like, motherfucker, there's a shark behind you. So I think if we could have delayed everyone being aware of the mermaids like 50 more pages, cut out some of the unnecessary POVs, had a little bit more lead up to the tension, and then go like balls to the wall with the mermaids killing people, I would have liked it even better. So the last thing I love about this book is something that I can't go too much in detail about, but it's the ending. Spoiler-free review, which is why I can't go into too much detail about it. But this book has one of my favorite endings of all time. Y'all know I love me an open-ended story because I like to think of fan fiction in my brain. And the end is left kind of open. Like, you get resolution for the characters, but, it's the ocean, and there are still lots of mysteries left unsolved and lots of questions left unanswered. And I will just read it at that, and you will have to read the book or look up spoilers to find out more yourself. Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant is an easy 5 out of 5 stars, one of the easiest ones I've given this year. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and you should read it if you like scary oceans, killer mermaids, or gay people. This video should be going up before the Spooky Bitches book club, so if you want to hear me talk more in depth and get into spoilers with my friends, then make sure you go check that out. I will leave information for that linked downstairs, like I said, as well as information to go follow all of the other co-hosts and all of our other channels, our Instagram and our Twitter and stuff like that. Comment question of the day, let me know if you read this book, what you thought about it, just keep them spoiler free so we don't spoil people. If you don't have time, you don't have the spoons, or you don't want to answer, leave me a yellow heart so I know you made it all the way until the end. All my social media links will be down below, as well as links to my coffee, my Amazon wishlist, and my PayPal if you want to support me further outside of YouTube. Alright, that's all I have for you today. I hope you have a wonderful, whatever it is, wherever you are. I will see you next time for another video. Thank you for watching. Okay, cool. Bye.